Venezuela, the president and candidate for the Great Patriotic Poll, Nicolas Maduro, led the Great Victory March in Caracas as part of the beginning of his electoral campaign for elections on July 28th. In the United Kingdom, the Labour Party secured a landslide victory to end 14 years of Conservative rule, and Labour leader Keir Starmer has become the new Prime Minister. An Israeli bombardment of the Gaza Strip causes several casualties on the 273rd day of the genocidal war against the Palestinian population. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. The president of Venezuela and candidate for the Great Patriotic Poll, Nicolas Maduro, led the Great Victory March in the capital, Caracas, as part of the beginning of his electoral campaign for elections on July 28th. During the massive mobilization that started from the vicinity of PDVSA La Campiña towards the Miraflores Palace, the national executive was received by the people amidst joy and signs of affection. The candidate of the Great Patriotic Poll also thanked the militants who reaffirmed their support for a sure victory on July 28th. Upon his arrival to the stage, the national executive assured that after winning the presidential elections on July 28th, he will make sure that the Venezuelan extreme right wing and its U.S. allies are held accountable for their actions.
I'm Nicolas Maduro Moros, President of the people from Caracas, and I declare the victory on the 28th of July with the people on the streets. And I summon all the neighbors, men and women. I summon to all Venezuelan families, to the union, to unity.
And the Labour Party in the United Kingdom has secured a landslide victory in the election to end 14 years of Conservative rule. Labour leader Keir Starmer became the new Prime Minister of the country. The Labour Party obtained an absolute majority in the House of Commons as the Conservative Party faced its worst results in history. Former Prime Minister recognized the defeat and issued his resignation as Prime Minister, while Starmer officially became the new PM after ceremonial meeting with King Charles III. During his first statement, Starmer spoke of the importance of public service, the rebuilding of the health system, and stated that change begins now.
Thank you. But a mandate like this comes with a great responsibility. Our task is nothing less than renewing the ideas that hold this country together. National renewal. Country first, party second isn't a slogan. It's the guiding principle everything we have done and must keep on doing. On the economy, on national security, on protecting our borders. The British people had to look us in the eye and see that we can serve their interests. And that work doesn't stop now. It never stops. The changes we've made are permanent, irreversible, and we must keep going. We ran as a changed Labour Party, and we will govern as a changed Labour Party.
For his part, outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak acknowledged the Conservative Party's defeat and congratulated Keir Starmer on his win.
The Labour Party has won this general election, and I have called Sir Keir Starmer to congratulate him on his victory. Today, power will change hands in a peaceful and orderly manner, with goodwill on all sides. That is something that should give us all confidence in our country's stability and future. The British people have delivered a sobering verdict tonight. There is much to learn and reflect on, and I take responsibility for the loss.
We go now to France, where up to 200 aspirants to the left or center deputies of parliament, third in voting intention, have withdrawn their candidacies during the last hours to avoid the triumph of the far right in the second round of legislative elections to be held on July 7th. Those who withdrew their candidacies belong to several political forces, but mainly come from the New Popular Front, an alliance between the French Insoumis and other formations of the traditional left, and from the coalition Together for the Republic, created around the Renaissance Party of President Emmanuel Macron from the center. The far-right National Rally led with 32.2% of the votes in the first round of the legislative elections held on June 30th. Next came the New Popular Front with 29.1% of the votes, while Macron's coalition came in third place with 21.5%. And in Iran on Friday, the second round of the presidential elections has started, in which candidates Masoud Pezeshkian and Saeed Jalili are facing off. This way, approximately 59,000 polling stations were set up to receive the more than 61 million Iranians who were summoned to exercise their right to vote. After a first round of elections held on June 28th, the reformist Pezeshkian and the principalist Jalili emerged as the two candidates with the highest number of votes. However, neither managed to reach an absolute majority, which is why they will face each other again in a second round. Voting for the runoff will continue until 6 p.m. when the counting of the votes will begin to decide who will be the new Iranian president. And early in the morning in the Iranian capital of Tehran, the country's top leader, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was the first to exercise his right to vote. The leader of the Islamic Revolution praised the participation of the Iranian population in the second round of the presidential elections and acknowledged that the levels of interest and mobilization of the citizens are significantly higher compared to the first round.
I heard that the enthusiasm and interest of the people are stronger than before. Praise God for this. And if so, it will be gratifying, God willing. Our dear people will be able to vote and choose the best.
Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Argentina, the grandmothers and mothers of Plaza de Mayo demonstrated in front of the government house in defense of human rights and in rejection of the policies of the Javier Milei's administration. Within the framework of the historical marches of Mothers of Plaza de Mayo, the main objective of this mobilization was to denounce the dismantling of the Secretariat of Human Rights and the layoffs in the spaces for memory in all the dependencies of the state orchestrated by Milei. In addition, the organizations presented a joint document before the government house that exposed their claim and rejection to these policies that effectively destroy the state apparatus and principles of human rights. We continue in Argentina as the National Institute of Statistics reported that the economic activity in April dropped 1.7% year-on-year. This includes a 5.1% fall of the GDP and a daily economy that affects not only the companies but also the general public. Our correspondent Juan Carlos Bartolota with the details.
Amid a strong rise of the informal or parallel US dollar, the impact of the economic recession on small and medium-sized companies, which generate the largest number of jobs, is becoming more and more noticeable every day.
Estamos frente a un problema donde decimos que para fin de año va a haber 300.000 puestos de trabajo menos en Argentina si no tomamos medidas.
We are even facing a serious problem. If we do not take measures by the end of the year, there will be 300,000 less jobs in Argentina. And here is where we turn to the conscience, to the responsibility of our national deputies to draft laws, proposals that come to solve this great problem. Small and medium-sized businessmen warned of the danger that Milei's economy policy poses to small and medium-sized industries.
Estamos atravesando una situación.
We are even going through a very serious situation in the national small and medium-sized industry, a crisis very rarely seen, where we have temporary suspensions of the companies that paralyze their production, because they have no sales. They are overstocked. This is evidently due to the fall of the market that in some cases reaches 60% depending on the item, and we say that this problem is not the fault of the small and medium-sized companies. It is not the fault of the manufacturers. Agricultural procedures, in this case of the cold cuts industry, state that the law of basis is insufficient to revert situations such as taxation. Until we make the second, third, fourth law, thinking mainly on the small, medium-sized companies, we do not want any gift. That is all. That time has passed. We want them to back off, and we're willing to help them, to tell them, to help them to see what steps can be taken out, that the control remains the same. The tax revenues increase. I can assure you that they increase, but with less paperwork, less taxes, and with less regulations.
En el primer trimestre de 2024, ya de la gestión Milei, el Producto Bruto...
This Monday, the National Institute of Statistics and Census reported that in the first quarter of 2024, under Milei's administration, the gross domestic product fell by 5.1% in the year-on-year comparison, and unemployment grew to 7.7%. Juan Carlos Bartolota, teleSUR, Buenos Aires.
In other news, Bolivian military officer Vladimir Lupa Salamanca, accused of leading snipers during the attempted coup d'etat in Bolivia on June 26, was sent to prison and remand according to the government. Bolivian government minister Eduardo del Castillo stated that Lupa was in charge of the F-10 Special Forces Group of the Cotapachi unit in the central region of Cochabamba. Del Castillo assured that according to police intelligence, the accused traveled in a military plane from Cochabamba to La Paz with 5 other soldiers and with weapons that were supposed to be used during the armed uprising. Prosecutor Franklin Alborta, head of the commission investigating the event on June 26, said that around 30 people, including civilians and military personnel, are being investigated. And Colombia's President Gustavo Petro on Thursday called on the organization Gulf Clan to join the peace process he has been leading in the South American nation since the beginning of his term in office. From the village of Domingo, a remote area of the department of Chocó, the president insisted on urging popular organization to overcome social inequalities and address the issue of security. He also called on the local population to reject violence in order to coexist peacefully and become industrial. Petro recently urged the Gulf Clan, which is made up of some 1,700 members and has operations in 80% of Colombian territory, to abandon extortion and the criminal activities that finance them. Cyclone Beryl reached Mexican coast as a Category 3 hurricane. Authorities urged the population of the Quintana Roo state to take precautionary measures. According to Mexico's National Meteorological Service, the weather phenomenon maintains its trajectory towards the Yucatan Peninsula and is expected to impact during the early hours of Friday morning as a Category 3 or 2 hurricane in the town of Tulum. The authorities urged residents, tourists, and the maritime navigation to take extreme precautions in the face of rain, winds, and high waves, in addition to following the warnings and recommendations of the Civil Protection. In view of the situation, Cancun's International Airport reported the cancellation of 284 flights and the suspension of others. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Palestine, Israeli bombardment of the Gaza Strip leaves several people dead and dozens wounded on the 273rd day of the genocidal war against the Palestinian population. The Palestinian Red Crescent teams rescued the body of one person and 3 wounded after being attacked by an Israeli reconnaissance plane in Al-Sika Street east of the Al-Jabalia camp. 5 other people were killed, including 3 children, in a bombardment of a house in the same locality. Civilian casualties were also reported following attacks in several parts of the Gaza City, Han Yunis, Nusayrat, and Rafah. Since last October 7th, at least 38,011 people have been killed by Israel, most of them women and children, while more than 87,000 have been wounded. And we stay in Palestine, where at least 5 people were killed by the Israeli army after an assault on the city of Jenin in the occupied West Bank. Wafa news agency reported that in the early hours of Friday morning, the occupation forces stormed the Jenin refugee camp and besieged a house which was attacked with sniper missiles and drones, killing 4 young men between 20 and 30 years old. Clashes with Zionist soldiers broke out near the site, in which another 54-year-old Palestinian was killed. Since last October 7th, in parallel to its genocidal war in Gaza, the Israeli army intensified its already frequent incursions into the occupied West Bank, where at least 566 Palestinians have been killed by soldiers and in violent episodes by Israeli settlers. Israel approved the construction of more than 5,000 new homes in illegal settlements and the legalization of 3 new colonies in the occupied West Bank, despite the rejection of the Palestinian authorities and governments of the region. The Israeli High Planning Council approved the construction of 5,295 housing units after announcing 2 days ago the declaration of 1,200 hectares of Palestinian land in the Jordan Valley as state land. This is the largest land seizure since the Oslo Accords of 1993. Numerous countries, including Egypt, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, as well as regional blocs, which include the European Union, the Arab League, and the Gulf Cooperation Council, have denounced these expansionist actions which violate international law. According to official figures, more than 250,000 Jewish settlers live in the occupied East Jerusalem area and another 500,000 in the rest of the occupied West Bank. The Caribbean Festival returns in 2024 to Santiago de Cuba. More than 300 foreigners from 16 countries are participating in the 43rd edition, inaugurated at the Heredia Theater, with the presence of Beatriz Johnson, first Secretary of the Communist Party of Cuba in this eastern province. Our correspondent Fabiola Lopez gives us more details.
The Festival of Fire is back. The drum sound, the color sparks, the joy rises, and the rhythm bursts. Santiago de Cuba, the untamed city of this island, is consecrated as the most Caribbean of the Cuban cities.
Cuba is going through one of the worst crises since the revolutionary triumph of 1959, as never before. Material shortages of all kinds insist on daily life and ravage the achievements of the revolutionary process. This is not the only hardship that this festival of culture has had to coexist with. It is good that young people and those who visit for the first time know that the Festival of the Caribbean has never been suspended, but that it has been strengthened by solidarity.
It is the inaugural gala at the Heredia Theater, the most important of the city. The appointment of the ideas, the arts, and the folklore promises intense days.
We will be here these days celebrating this cultural force that comes from Africa and that blends with America, the original peoples, and today they are an alternative for the global world.
Colloquiums and workshops, Byzantine, Haitian, and Tejamaja festivities, homage to slave rebellion, plastic arts, theater, cinema, parades, and processions are just some of the activities on this 43rd edition, which has as a guest of honor the Brazilian state of Bahia, the scene of the most popular carnival in the South American giant. You've been over 40 times here to the Caribbean Festival. Why? What has summoned you here?
Let's go to the history. I have been an admirer of the Cuban people since I was a child, with the desire to touch the land of Fidel and Martí and to have the opportunity to visit a square so famous in the Dominican Republic as the Revolution Square. When I came here, I wanted to go crazy, and since 1998, I have been saying present at this festival.
The undulating valley, escorted by sea and mountains, called Santiago de Cuba, will be filled these days with celebration, joy, colors, flavor, and Caribbean rhythm.
Fabiola Lopez, teleSUR, Santiago de Cuba.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For teleSUR English, my name is Beren de los Santos. Thank you for watching.